Why is it important to let your hardware distributor know that when you're buying mortise locks, you don't intend on centering them equally in the door? Not every customer does that, and in fact the majority don't, because they don't realize that that causes lots of problems when it comes to the parts that you're going to get in the box. Some things are okay to be too long, some things can be cut down, and other things, if they're a 1/16 of an inch too short, they might as well be a mile too short. So when you're installing a mortise case into a door thickness, a standard door thickness or an unusual door thickness, it doesn't matter what the door thickness is. When you're going to bias that lock center line to the inside or to the outside, that has to be declared at the time of order for a couple of reasons. A, that you get the right parts. B, that it's priced correctly. Extended equally or unequally is what we would call it. Sometimes has an impact on price. This client reached out to me that we've supplied material to. Hey, we've got this situation where the thumb turns are a little short. We just started installing this lock that we got from you some point in the past, and boy, the thumb turn spindle's a little short. Can you just give me a solution? Yeah, order new thumb turns. That's the solution. That's the initial solution that you want to suggest. But I was able to figure out that there are 42 of these mortise locks. These mortise locks, based on how they were configured, had a street price of over $1,000 each. So we've got $40,000+ of mortise locks out there. And they didn't tell us that the locks were unequally extended. They were offset in the door. Standard 1 3/4 door thickness. But they were kicking the mortise case over. Probably because they have a rabbited edge would be my guess, but I don't know that. So when I look at this part number, this is a gnarly part number. It's an L9496 by L, less cylinder, by 01 by A, by 09487 inch and 3/8, by L583-254, by 09-611, by 09-670, by 09-509, by L583-363, by 1 3/4 door, standard fastener package, and 613. That's the part number I came up with for what the client asked for, which was an L900 lock, 613 with an 01 lever, A rose, 80A thumb turn. Gave me the part number for that. Gave me the part number for the occupancy indicator, and then said an 1 1/16 faceplate rather than the 1 1/4. The question obviously was, okay, what function do you want? And they explained the function, and it became an L9496. But nowhere in there did they say, hey, by the way, we're going to move this lock over probably a 1/4 inch off center, which would explain the narrower faceplate. The problem with that is, well, is a manifold problem. Let's switch to the screen view and dissect all this.
If you are enjoying this video, please click thumbs up or like, and also please consider subscribing to our channel. Let's move on to the rest of the video.
Okay, here's the part number that the client gave us. Schlage L900, lock set finish 613, lever 01, A rose, 80A thumb turn, 09509, L583-L363, indicator 09611 left hand, with 1 1/16 faceplate rather than the 1 1/4. Here's what I turned it into. Let's take a look at what all of that could possibly mean. Let's get the Schlage book open. Full line catalog. So we know it's an L9496. I think that's just simply a keyed function with a deadbolt and occupancy indicator. Let's take a look at what it actually is. Yeah. Alright. Privacy with an 09611 occupied indicator for rose trim. Latch bolt retracted by knob or lever from either side. Deadbolt actuation by outside key or inside thumb turn. Okay, so it's a keyed privacy. It's keyed on the outside, thumb turn on the inside. Thrown deadbolt displays occupied message and locks outside lever. Okay, so this is a privacy that has a key override. Occupancy indicator on the outside. Inside, knob or lever retracts both deadbolt and latch and unlocks the outside lever. Okay, that's pretty important. When you are locked, when the exterior of the door is secure, you can get out. No problem. And when you get out, you're going to leave it completely unlocked. Okay, so it's a privacy function that has a deadbolt, It has an occupancy indicator, and it is a key override. Key override is important in the sense that someone can get in using an actual key, not an emergency key. So the L means less cylinder in the part number. This client is, the owner is supplying their own cylinders. My customer didn't know what they were doing, what key system they had. Our mandate was to supply them less cylinders. The owner is going to need to supply housings with the proper interchangeable core, and those housings need to have the proper cam. What I mean by that is you have to have the Schlage type cam for this function on the back. We weren't supplying that. It's an 01 lever with an A rose, so an 09487. So on the outside, it'll have a cylinder that we've provided, except that it's a mortise cylinder with a coin turn. Okay, a really neat, elegant way, I suppose, to allow access. So with some sort of flat instrument, someone would be able to gain access with that, not with a key. We provided it. Oh, that makes sense. Okay, so 09487 inch and 3/8 is the length. The L583 254 is probably a reference to the cam, would be my guess. Yeah, definitely. All cylinder, yeah, so I don't know what cam that is, but it's got to be the Schlage beaver tail style cam is what we kind of call it around the shop. Yeah, right there. The Schlage beaver style cam, beaver tail. Okay, so we've got an inch and 3/8 coin turn with the proper cam. We got an 09611. What is that? Yeah, that's an occupancy indicator. Okay. So there you go. So it's got this old style occupancy indicator on the outside with an 09670. 09-670. That's the armor front. The 09670 is the inch and a 16th wide armor front for doors that are thinner than inch and 3/4. Some people just like them because they're smaller. Then you got an 09509. That's a large thumb turn. Okay, so that's going to look like this. And this is where we're having the problem. 09509 by L583 363. So this is the entire issue. The client has clearly moved the lock over towards the secured side of the door, the ingress side, and now the spindle on the back. That's the image provided by the client. So that's too small. They're saying it's about a 1/4 inch too small, which, yeah, it probably is. They probably want it to be a little bit longer. So, and they told us inch and 3/4 thick door. Actually, they didn't tell us that. This was worked out in the process of going through the other questions that this left. Standard door package, standard fastener package, oil rub bronze, obviously the handing. So the problem with not declaring where the lock is, obviously the spindle on the egress side is too short. However, if we take a look at the Schlage service manual and we do a find function for L9496, all right, we've got the okay, here we go. Here's what it looks like. All of this mess down here. Okay, really easy, simple, and straightforward. So the F part, the thumb turn, that's too short, which tells me everything is impacted. So what's impacted? On the inside of the door, that spindle. They've moved the lock case towards the outside. The key stock on the back of the thumb turn is too short. The other problem with that is this, you run the risk of the spindle being too long. You run the risk of your mounting posts definitely not being the right, well, the mounting post would actually be okay on this job because it's still an inch and 3/4 thick door. They go through the lock case. Those are probably going to be okay. The other problem that you're going to have when you move the lock in the door is, it's not shown here, but the length of the lip on the strike. And what I mean by that is, we've got a jamb, we've got a door. Let's say that this is the center line, and that latch bolt needs to come out here. Well, they've taken it and they've moved it over here. The problem is that strike plate's going to come out here. All good, because that's where the hole is in the back. When they move that out here, the only way to contend with that is to take the strike and move it out this way, and now your lip length is going to be hanging out even further. So if they were to do that, they would actually want to be ordering a much smaller, a shorter lip strike, like maybe possibly a 7/8, or a 1-inch lip length, because the standard lip length is 1 3/16. So that is a problem as well. Actually, I drew it in reverse as if it was a reverse bevel door. I don't know what hand they were ordered as lefts and rights. So, but the concept still remains the same. Because this door is still 1 3/4, the damage is probably minimized. The spindles for the trim, that's going to be okay because there's a lot of hollow area inside of the trim that will go in. That probably won't be an issue. The fact that the cylinder was ordered as 1 3/8, yeah, that's too long. That's probably not going to be a problem in the sense that they could build that out if they needed to with a block, the proper blocking ring. Schlage has two. One is meant for compression rings, the other's not. I think it's the 042 version. Don't quote me on that. The cam on the back may bottom into the lock case. Could be that problem with the cylinder being, the lock body being biased towards the secure side of the door. Now, if the door was other than 1 3/4, then absolutely everything is impacted to a point where you can't really use what you have in the field. It's probably going to be that the client's going to be okay with everything. They may need a blocking ring for the cylinder, but probably not. But they're going to need to do something here. So the client asked me, and this is the part where it gets a little funny. We have some existing Schlage L9000 locks that we ordered with the 09, 509 thumb turns on a big order with ABS maybe 6 to 8 months ago. Due to the lock being offset in the door thickness, that's new information. The spindle, or lack thereof, on the thumb turn itself is no longer reaching the lock. During install was fine, but now with doors swelling, we're having some issues and can't have people getting locked in bathroom stalls. So all these are installed already, obviously. There's 42 bathrooms apparently. Any ideas, he asks, is there another thumb turn we could provide instead? Is there an extension for the 09509? There aren't extensions. It's just new thumb turns with the proper length spindle on the back of that is what would really need to happen.
If you are enjoying this video, please click thumbs up or like, and also please consider subscribing to our channel. Let's move on to the rest of the video.
So, a couple of solutions that I've come up with. The first solution is to, well, the second solution is to get rid of the inside thumb turn and then duplicate everything that was done here with a handicap compliant mortise thumb turn. Put an occupancy indicator on the inside, and the reason I suggest that is in the hopes that this will cover the prep for the thumb turn. Add one of these to the inside. Get a mortise thumb turn, which would be a Cava Ilko, something not unlike this. It'll have to be longer, but this is the idea. Mortise thumb turn, proper cam, proper length. The problem with that idea is the cost is really high. An 09611, if that's what that is, that's an expensive solution. Yeah, that occupancy indicator has a list of 161. So you've got probably $200 a list times 42. You got lots of money to spend there. It would really solve the problem elegantly, though, however. So that would certainly work. The other solution I came up with, definitely not factory endorsed, is this. The size of the key stock is 3/16 by 3/16 coming off of the back of this. I was thinking for a way to mechanically do this, but I think I hit a wall with that. So brass tube, an OD of 3/16, and I'm going to grab this one here that's 7/32. So imagine if we were to take this piece of brass tube, which is 3/16 by 3/16, and we slide that into the hub here. Cut it to whatever length, 1.25 inches, I'm guessing, maybe put a dab of epoxy on there and hold it inside the hub. Then use the same item, but just larger. The 7/32 OD is going to have an ID of 7/32 minus 0.014 minus 0.014. So 1 divided by 32 times 7 minus 0.014 minus 0.014. That is 0.19 on the ID. 0.19. The OD of 3/16 is 0.1875. So the 3/16 tube should slide perfectly into the 7/32 tube. So what do we have? 3/16 tube here. the spindle coming off the back of the thumb turn, and then our 7/32 tube. Okay, your lock case is here, tube is sticking out, maybe a little bit of epoxy. I'd like to mechanically fasten it, but that casserole isn't fully baked just yet. Cut this to your length as needed, won't be very long. Slide that over, bring your thumb turn in. The issue is this is all gonna move in that direction. It's just gonna slide. Maybe what they could do is put a couple of rubber washers around this. Put another one here, and keep that on the lock case. Just to keep that over the lock case so it doesn't slide. Cut that long enough and let it protrude a 1/4 inch from the lock case. Maybe make all of this such that you can still slide it in the cavity in the edge of the door. I don't know, it's worth a shot. You know, obviously what I'd want to do is just take some key stock and braze it to the back here. I don't know the base metal of this, but it's probably non-ferrous. So if someone can braze, you'd be able to just weld that onto the back, or possibly weld it onto the back of the thumb turn. I have a picture of the thumb turn here. Obviously get in here and cut it. Yeah, you can see you're barely just touching. That's how the factory would be doing it. They'd be making this properly. You know, the other thing, yeah. You know, I just had another idea. I could make that. I could make that out of 3/16 solid. I mean, well, the finish would be the problem. But that could be made out of 3/16 solid bronze and then cut on a CNC. That could work. That would work. The finish wouldn't be right, but that could work. Yeah, that's another idea. They'd have to get them powder coated or figure out how to oil rub. Anyway, that is what we have. Let's wrap up this video on camera.
If you've not hit subscribe yet, we would very much appreciate if you did, and hopefully you're enjoying this video. Now, let's get back to it.
And part of this video is also to say, you know, it's not so much a problem when you have one. I had a client yesterday, and he's actually not a client. He's a fella that I met through YouTube, and he has a situation where he has a Sargent PE 8800. It's an exit device. It's a rim exit device. On the back of the rim cylinder, think of a rim cylinder. You got 2 holes drilled and tapped. The location of those holes is not the same on every lock manufacturer's rim cylinder. Sargent puts those holes in a different location than other people do. This job had the Sargent exit. It had a Rockwood vandal resistant trim, and it had a Schlage rim cylinder housing for full-size interchangeable core. They were going to put in, obviously, a Schlage proprietary key system there. The inside head case of the exit device had the 2 holes drilled and countersunk for the screws to go through to go right into the back of the Sargent rim cylinder that it would take, not using Sargent. So they can't use the 2 holes that are in the head case, the cast aluminum head case. The underside of the head case has a recess so that the cylinder mounting plate that you would normally use, you drill an 1.25 inch hole, cylinder goes in, cylinder mounting plate, tailpiece comes out, 2 screws go through. The stock Schlage cylinder mounting plate would not fit into the recess for the head case of the exit device because of a tail hanging off the bottom. So this client had to take that cylinder mounting plate, and the client became extremely animated over it. You know, a grinder. The point of this is it's usually not a really big deal when you've got one door that you have to work on something. So the amount of time it took the client to call Sargent to complain why these parts didn't work together, he could have just taken. He said he used tin snips. I don't know that you'd have the forearms of Popeye to do that. I would have ground the plate down, or just took a grinder and just ground it down on the job site. Or I would have ordered the Kaba. Kaba has a mounting plate that would probably work, that's curved on the bottom. So he just basically took the standard Schlage mounting plate that's got that tail down and he just cut it off. Done. No big deal, there's one. Well, there's 42 of these mortise locks. that have thumb turns that are too small, and they're all installed, and people are getting locked in, and that is really no good. Now, the other idea that I had was, the client said 1/4 inch, so I didn't recommend it. I didn't suggest it. But the first idea I had was, the thumb turn has a round base. Let's say it has a diameter of X. Get a Forstner bit with that same diameter of X and drill that hole and recess that thumb turn in slightly. If he needed to pick up 1/8 of an inch, it would probably work. The problem is the clearance of the thumb turn is now really close to the face of the door, and getting the exact Forstner bit diameter may not be plus there's a hole in the center. That would be problematic. He would not be drilling a Forstner. Well, you could do it with a router. If you had a template clamped to the door, you could route that really easy. Sink that thumb turn in slightly. Wouldn't be the end of the world, but that would be a ton of labor. So that's another idea. So the right idea, reorder thumb turns with the proper length spindle. That's all there is to it. And lacking that as an ability to solve the problem immediately, perhaps these telescoping tubes will just solve it permanently. Probably will, in my estimation. Anyway, it's really important because all these parts need to work together. Sometimes manufacturers, as I kind of alluded initially, make it really easy. Schlage makes it really easy, except that their catalog over the years has become just massive behemoth. It's all in there, but they changed the format of the catalog, and I knew where everything was in my 1992 Schlage price list. I no longer know where anything is in that price list. Someone like Sargent, they make it pretty easy. Yale does not make it easy. If you have a mortise lock that's unequally extended for an atypical door thickness, that must run through their engineering department. They do not have all those parts listed in their price book, which you would really want to see have happen. When you do unequal extending of a mortise lock in a door with a standard or non-standard door thickness, you do it once or twice, and then you automatically am thinking, well, what's the hand of the door? If it's reverse, if it's left or right, or left reverse or right reverse, in or out swing, that is going to immediately tell you what's going to be impacted. But you've got to think about strike plates, cylinder lengths, thumb turn lengths, spindle lengths, mounting post lengths, machine screws for those as well. So easily 6 things will get impacted. Reach out to your door distributor, reach out to your hardware expert, let them leverage their expertise to make sure that you get everything you need the first time. And what should happen is when those orders go out, they need to be double checked, because you've got a lot of non-standard parts. When you're doing unusual door thicknesses that are biased towards one side or the other, or if it's centered in the door, most of the typical parts don't apply. All new pieces have to be put in. I've supplied orders from Schlage that, yep, they got 6 of the 12 right, but yeah, the strike plates are all wrong. It has to be double checked. Anyway, any questions, please feel free to reach out to us. Thank you.
Thank you for watching, and if you've enjoyed this video, please click thumbs up, please subscribe, and maybe even send the video to someone that you know. Thank you.